She lied to me for years, so I let her believe everything was fixed. My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and we have a daughter who is almost 2. She is the light of my life, and honestly, the only reason I haven't just vanished into thin air. About 2 years ago, my wife joined a new gym. She started talking about this one particular person there, let's call them the gym friend. At first, it was just, oh, they gave me some great tips on my form, or, we're grabbing a smoothie after the workout. I'm not a jealous guy. I trust easily. But then the smoothie turned into late-night texts. The form tips turned into 4-hour gym sessions. I told her it made me uncomfortable. I told her I felt like she was prioritizing this person over our time together. She looked me in the eye and told me I was being insecure. She told me they were just friends and that I was suffocating her by even asking. So, I backed off. I apologized. I tried to be the cool husband. But the gut feeling never went away. For 18 months, I begged her to go to marriage counseling with me. I told her I felt like we were drifting, that the intimacy was gone, and that I felt like a third wheel in my own marriage. Her response was always the same, you're the one with the problem, so you go to therapy. I'm fine. Our marriage is fine. Then I found the app. It was hidden in a folder labeled Utilities. It was full of messages. Some were flirtatious, some were suggestive, and some were just deep. The kind of deep conversations we used to have before our daughter was born. I confronted her. She cried, swore she'd delete the app, and promised to cut contact. She didn't. She just got better at hiding it. Or so she thought. I'm not proud of this, but I became a detective in my own home. I watched her phone habits. I noticed when she'd take it into the bathroom for 30 minutes. I noticed the way she'd tilt the screen away when I walked by. I told myself, maybe it's just emotional. Maybe it hasn't crossed the line. I made every excuse in the book because I didn't want my family to break. The breaking point happened 3 weeks ago. She told me she was going to a friend's house for a girls' night. Something felt off, that same cold weight in my stomach I'd been carrying for 2 years. I checked the location on our shared tablet. She wasn't at her friend's house. She was at an apartment complex across town. I waited up for her. When she walked in at 1 a.m., smelling like a different soap and looking refreshed, I didn't scream. I didn't even raise my voice. I just asked, how was the apartment? She crumbled. It wasn't a slow realization, it was an instant collapse. She admitted everything. It had been physical for months. The person from the gym. The person I told her made me uncomfortable 2 years ago. The person she swore was just a friend, while she looked me in the face and called me crazy. In that moment, while she was sobbing on the floor of our living room, something inside me just clicked. It was like a circuit breaker flipped. All the love, the anxiety, the desperate need to save the relationship, it just evaporated. I looked at her and didn't see my wife. I saw a stranger who had spent 730 days systematically lying to me. But I didn't tell her that. When she gasped out, I'll do anything. Please. Let's go to counseling. I'll quit the gym. I'll give you all my passwords. Please don't leave, I just nodded. I heard myself say, okay. We can try. That was the start of the great performance. For the last 3 weeks, I've been the model husband. We've gone to 3 sessions of couples therapy. I sit on that beige sofa and I talk about my feelings. I talk about rebuilding trust and communication barriers. The therapist looks at me and says I'm doing brave work. My wife looks at me with so much hope in her eyes it should probably make me feel guilty. She thinks this is our Phoenix moment, the part of the story where we hit rock bottom and climb back up together. But while she's at work, I'm not working on us. I'm working on my exit. I've been funneling money into a separate savings account for months. Even before I had proof of the physical cheating, I had a feeling I'd need a lifeboat. I've saved enough for a security deposit and 3 months of rent. I've already toured 2 apartments. I chose one yesterday. It's small, but it has a beautiful room for our daughter. I've spent my lunch breaks meeting with a lawyer. We're drafting a custody agreement that's fair. I'm not a monster, she's a good mother. Our daughter loves her, and I would never weaponize a child because of her mother's infidelity. But I'm also making sure I'm protected. I'm documenting the history of the last 2 years, not to be petty, but to ensure she can't claim I'm abandoning the family when I walk out. The hardest part is the day-to-day. We had dinner last night, and she reached across the table to hold my hand. She said, I feel like we're finally getting back to who we were. I'm so glad we're doing this. I squeezed her hand back and smiled. Me too, I said. I felt nothing. No spark, no guilt, no warmth. Just a cold, calculated focus on the calendar. My plan is to keep this up for another 2 weeks. That's when the lease starts. On a Tuesday, while she's at her new job, she quit the gym and the old job to start fresh. I have a moving crew scheduled. I'm going to take my clothes, my personal belongings, and the furniture I brought into the marriage. I'll leave a folder on the kitchen island with the divorce papers, the custody proposal, and a letter. The letter won't be dramatic. It won't have any "how could you" or "I hate you" in it. It will just say, "I knew I was done the night you confessed. You spent 2 years making me feel like I was losing my mind while you lied to my face. I decided to give you exactly what you gave me, a false sense of security while I planned my next move. Counseling wasn't for us. It was for me, to make sure I could leave calmly. Please contact my lawyer." I know what people will say. Why waste the money on therapy? Why put her through the emotional wringer of thinking it's okay? Just be the bigger person and leave now. But here's the thing, for 2 years, she held all the power. She knew the truth, and I didn't. She controlled the narrative. She watched me beg and plead and cry for us to be better, all while she was texting him under the covers. She let me feel crazy for having basic intuition. By staying these few extra weeks, I've regained my footing. I'm not leaving in a blind, emotional rage where I might make mistakes or give up things I shouldn't. I'm leaving with a plan, a home, and my dignity intact. I want her to feel that moment of total, world-altering shock. I want her to realize that while she was putting in the work for 3 weeks, it didn't make up for the 104 weeks she spent destroying me. I want her to understand that once you break someone's trust that thoroughly, you don't get to decide how the story ends. Last night, we were lying in bed, and she started talking about taking a trip this summer. A recommitment trip. She was scrolling through albums, showing me pictures of cabins in the mountains. I sat there, looking at the photos, nodding, and saying things like, "That porch is nice," and "The view is beautiful." Inside, I was thinking about the fact that in 14 days, I'll never have to sleep in this bed again. I won't have to wonder who she's texting. I won't have to check locations or feel that spike of adrenaline when her phone dings. I feel like a spy in my own life. I'm playing the role of the forgiving husband, the healing partner, the guy who stayed. And she's so relieved to have gotten away with it, in the sense that she kept the marriage, that she isn't even looking for the signs. She's so focused on her own redemption arc that she hasn't noticed I've stopped actually sharing anything about my day. She hasn't noticed that I don't initiate physical contact anymore. She hasn't noticed that I'm already gone. Am I the a-hole? I'm essentially gaslighting her into thinking the marriage is saved just so I can have a cleaner, more satisfying exit. It feels cold. It feels calculated. But for the first time in 2 years, I don't feel like a victim. Is it wrong to let someone believe they've been forgiven just to buy yourself time to build a door? I'm looking at my watch. It's time to go home. I have to go be the working on it husband for a few more hours. I have to listen to her talk about her day and maybe even watch a movie together. I'll laugh at the right parts. I'll offer to make popcorn. And all the while, I'll be counting down the minutes until Tuesday the 10th. Update. I'm writing this almost a year and a half after I made that post sitting in my car with the lease agreement in my glove box. Back then everything still felt theoretical, like I was rehearsing an escape instead of actually living one. Now the divorce is finalized, the apartment no longer smells like fresh paint, and my life looks nothing like it did when I was pretending to fix a marriage that was already dead. A lot happened between that night and now, and honestly the part one underestimated most wasn't leaving. It was what came after. The move itself went exactly according to plan. That Tuesday felt strangely ordinary. I woke up early, made coffee like I always did, packed our daughter's daycare bag, and acted normal enough that nothing seemed off. My wife kissed me goodbye before work, told me she loved me, and reminded me about our counseling session later that week. She looked relaxed for the first time in months, like she truly believed the worst was behind us. About an hour after she left, the movers arrived. There's something surreal about watching your life get dismantled piece by piece. Drawers emptied, clothes folded into boxes, photos wrapped in paper. I didn't rush, but I didn't hesitate either. Everything I had planned suddenly felt mechanical. I followed the checklist my lawyer and I had built: personal belongings, documents, furniture I owned prior to marriage, our daughter's essentials for my place. I left the house clean. That part mattered to me for reasons I still can't fully explain. Maybe I didn't want her first reaction to be anger over mess instead of understanding that I was truly gone. The folder sat on the kitchen island exactly where I said it would. Divorce papers, custody proposal, lawyer contact information, and the letter. Short. Direct. No insults. No emotional essays. Just facts and a clear ending. By noon, I was standing in my new apartment surrounded by boxes, holding my phone and waiting. It didn't take long. The first call came about 40 minutes after she got home. I didn't answer. Then another. Then another. Within 15 minutes my phone looked like it was malfunctioning. Calls stacked on top of each other, texts coming so fast the screen barely stopped lighting up. At first the messages sounded confused. Asking where I was. Asking if something had happened. Then panic. Then anger. By the end of the hour, the tone changed completely. I stopped counting after 50 calls. She called nonstop that entire evening. When I didn't answer, she started calling everyone else. My parents. Her parents. Mutual friends. Coworkers whose numbers she must have dug out of old group chats. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly texting me asking if everything was okay because my wife was hysterical and telling them I had abandoned my family without warning. That was when I realized something important. She wasn't shocked because the marriage ended. She was furious because she lost control of the narrative. Within a day she had constructed a version of events where I blindsided her for no reason. According to what people were being told, counseling had been going amazingly well and I had suddenly snapped, packed up, and disappeared. She framed herself as someone working tirelessly to repair a marriage while her husband secretly plotted betrayal. For a few days, I stayed quiet. My lawyer advised minimal communication. I thought letting things settle would keep things calmer. It did the opposite. The messages escalated into insults, accusations, and threats. She called me selfish, cruel, manipulative. She accused me of traumatizing our daughter even though our daughter was too young to understand anything beyond changes in routine. She claimed I had emotionally abused her by pretending to reconcile. Then she started contacting my friends directly, sending long messages about how I had destroyed her life. Some believed her at first. A couple of people reached out cautiously, clearly unsure what to think. That was the moment I decided I wasn't protecting her anymore. I didn't go on a revenge campaign. I didn't blast screenshots publicly. But when people asked, I told the truth. Calmly. Without exaggeration. I explained the 2 years of lies, the affair, the hidden messages, the counseling that only started after she was caught. I explained why I needed time to secure housing and legal stability before leaving. Once the truth started circulating, the tone around me shifted quickly. People who had initially been distant suddenly understood why I had handled things the way I did. A few admitted they had noticed changes in her behavior long before everything came out but hadn't wanted to interfere. She did not take that well. The anger turned nuclear after she realized people weren't automatically siding with her anymore. She accused me of ruining her reputation. She claimed I was smearing her to justify my actions. Every conversation became a fight about perception rather than accountability. The divorce process officially began a few weeks later, and that's where things became exhausting in a completely different way. What should have been straightforward turned into a year-long battle because she refused to cooperate on almost everything. Paperwork deadlines passed without response. Agreements we reached verbally suddenly changed once documents were drafted. Mediation sessions dragged on for hours because she would agree to terms, then reverse position days later. It felt less like legal negotiation and more like resistance for the sake of resistance. Custody discussions were the hardest part. I never wanted to take our daughter away from her mother, and I never argued she was unfit. Despite everything, she genuinely loves our child. But she framed every proposal as me trying to steal parenting time. Even a balanced arrangement became a fight. There were moments when she blamed the entire situation on our daughter existing at all, saying motherhood had changed everything and that stress pushed her into choices she wouldn't otherwise have made. Hearing that during mediation was surreal. It felt like responsibility was being redirected anywhere except where it belonged. Eventually, after months of back and forth, the court finalized a 50-50 custody agreement. Week-on, week-off scheduling with shared holidays. It wasn't perfect, but it was fair, and more importantly, stable for our daughter. By the time the divorce was finalized, I felt older than I should have. Not wiser in some dramatic sense, just tired in a way that settles into your bones after prolonged conflict. What surprised me most happened shortly after everything ended. Within weeks, she was openly seeing the same gym partner again. Maybe they reconnected after the divorce. Maybe they never stopped. I honestly don't know, and at this point I don't care enough to investigate. Friends mentioned seeing them together. Social media eventually confirmed it. Vacation photos. Smiles. The kind of public relationship she once insisted didn't exist. Seeing that didn't hurt the way I expected. It mostly confirmed that leaving had been the right decision long before I actually walked out the door. She still carries a lot of anger toward me. Exchanges during custody handoffs are polite but cold. Occasionally she'll make comments implying I destroyed the marriage or embarrassed her by leaving the way I did. I don't engage anymore. Arguments stopped having meaning once the legal ties were finalized. Life now feels quieter in ways I didn't realize I needed. My apartment actually feels like home instead of a place where I was constantly waiting for tension to return. When my daughter is with me, the time feels intentional. When she's with her mom, I rest, work, and rebuild parts of myself that disappeared during those last years of the marriage. The strangest part is realizing how much anxiety I used to carry without noticing it. I don't check phones anymore. I don't analyze tone changes or late arrivals. Even mundane evenings feel different because they aren't layered with suspicion. Looking back, the petty part of my exit still sits in my mind. I won't pretend it was purely noble. I knew leaving that way would shock her. I knew it would hurt. At the time, it felt like reclaiming balance after years of being the only one living in uncertainty. Do I feel guilty about that now? Sometimes, in abstract moments when I think about how differently things could have unfolded if honesty had existed earlier on both sides. But then I remember the 2 years of being told my instincts were wrong while reality said otherwise. The truth is, those extra weeks gave me stability. They allowed me to leave calmly instead of explosively. They ensured my daughter had a prepared home waiting instead of chaos. Without that planning, the divorce could have been far uglier. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that endings rarely look clean from the outside. People want simple villains and heroes, but real relationships collapse through long chains of choices. Mine ended long before the moving truck arrived. I just happened to be the one who closed the door. These days, my focus stays narrow: work, parenting, rebuilding routines that feel healthy. I don't follow her life beyond what's necessary for co-parenting. Whatever she does now belongs to a chapter I'm no longer part of. Sometimes I think back to that night in my car when I wondered whether I was becoming someone cold or cruel. I don't think that anymore. I think I was someone who finally stopped negotiating with a situation that had already ended. And for the first time in years, I'm not waiting for the next lie to surface. I'm just living, which turns out to be quieter and far more peaceful than I remembered.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.